allegiance? Good too. I pledge allegiance to the flag. All right, so. Look, I need to stand up so everybody can see me. So. We have called to order. The next thing on our agenda is approval of minutes.
Next thing on our agenda is the Walpole.
Oh, I have the wrong agenda in front of me. The next thing on our agenda is the Walpole student presentation. Yes, that's right.
Oh, wildlife.
Little, I hear a loud cricket. All right, so Walpole students, take it away.
Just to talk real quick, we asked, a couple students from each building to kind of talk about what they have been working on. So we have a kindergarten student who's been speaking, and then we have a second and third grade class, and then an 8th grade and 7th grade, or 6th grade, sorry, for ELA and reading. So we will start with our kindergarten students. Talk about their project. So yeah, she can step right up there and kind of talk about it.
Good evening. My name is Julia Darling. And I am a kindergarten. Our class adopted a hosting task. From Belden Farm in Massachusetts. We have pictures of her and have learned facts about her from her farmers. We are excited to see her on a Google Meet in the spring. We will also get to visit a farm and milk a cow. Today we learned also about foods that we eat that come from cows. We even got to make butter today. Thank you.
Okay, so we had a couple second graders and a third grade stand-in because one of our students couldn't come, so luckily he's doing double duty tonight, and he saved me from double duty, so I'm very thankful. Like second graders. And third grader.
Second graders made multiplication posters. We had to come up. We had to come up with a math sentence and 4 different ways to solve the problem.
The 4 ways are repeat addition, arrays, skip counting, and equal groups. According to a second grader, arrays he thinks arrays are the easiest.
So now our stand-in second grade helper is now off doing his regular third grade thing. There we go. Third graders, come on now. And you know what to do. All right. I'll leave my switch back a little, huh? It is now. There you go. All right.
Third graders did a project with synonyms and antonyms. First, we randomly picked a word, then we came up with a synonym and antonym, and then we did an illustration of the word.
My word was discover. The synonym was locate and the antonym was lose.
My word was L. The synonym was sec and the antonym was healthy.
My word was enormous. The synonym was large and the antonym was tiny.
So we have, who was the first? Don't type. Savannah Anderson and Levi Putnam, and they had to research a famous author. And so they're using their public speaking skills, their research and synthesis skills, and their ability to figure out what the main and important parts are for their respective authors. And they did a really wonderful job.
Good evening. So my famous author project was on James Herriot. So here is some information, some facts and quotes from him about him. So James was born on October 3rd, 1916 in Sunderland, United Kingdom. And he died on February 23rd, 1995 in Thirsk, UK. He was 78 years old. Harriet was famous for writing the series of books, All Creatures Great and Small. The series consists of 5 books. All Creatures Great and Small, All Things Bright and Beautiful, The Lord God Made Them All Things Wise and Wonderful, and Every Living Thing. James also wrote many other books. All of his books reflect on his time as a country veterinarian in the UK. The memoirs recap how he fell in the most grueling and devastating. Some other fun facts. His real name is James Alfred Wright. He's British. James was 13 when he knew that he was going to become a veterinarian. Harriet was 50 when he started writing his books. James had 2 children, a boy who was a veterinarian and a girl who is a general physician. And there's also a series of shows called All Creatures Great and Small. The show All Creatures Great and Small received the Audi Award for Literary Fiction and Classics in 2022. Some quotes. If having a soul means being able to love and feel loved and loyal and gratitude, then animals are a lot better off than humans most of the time. I seem to have spent a good part of my life, probably too much, just standing and staring. So that's a bit about James Herriot. I had a great time learning about him, and I hope to do more projects like this.
Similar author, Stephen King. So Levi Putnam did a wonderful job, and we talk about Stephen King a lot and being kind of a native, relatively New England writer. So Levi Putnam, whenever you're ready.
So my name is Levi Putnam. I did a report on Stephen King. He was born September 21st, 1947 in Portland, Maine. One of his quotes is, "People think that I must be a very strange person. This is not true. I have the heart of a little boy." His last draw on my desk. His story, it was inspired by his car running out of gas over a drain gate grate, and he was thinking of the story 3 Billy wrote across, and he thought about how he could make that his own story and turn that into a novel. Another story, The Shining, was inspired by him only staying at a hotel that's about to close before its 6th season. And like they had the long corridors and stuff, and like he was thinking how it would be perfect for a ghost story in a dream. But fire force chasing his son through the corridors, and like then he woke up, he sat down, and he like thought of the story. And like after that, he thought of the whole design of how he wanted the story to be. Another one whose quote is the trust of the innocent is the liar most people fool. Okay. He writes in the horror and he is known as the master of horror. That's it.
All right, the 8th grade is presenting next. They did a project in reading class. We've been studying dystopian societies and conformity. And they had a choice of reading one of 5 books. So he read The Giver. And then afterwards, Avery Richardson's gonna talk about The Uglies. And they had to model and demonstrate the symbolic elements that support theme within the novel. So they're gonna talk about the hopes and faults that they notice within the novel that created the dystopia and the way to become more of a utopia.
My name is Perry. I live here and here's my presentation. So before we start, I'm gonna talk to you about a word that you might hear a lot in this presentation. It's called sameness. Sameness is a concept that was introduced in our society a while back, and it means no color, no love, and no animals. So a very bland society. I'm going to start with 5 faults of their society. One fault is that none of the parents are directly related to the kids. Each dwelling is what is known as what they live in. So for us, it's a house, but for them, it's a dwelling. And each parent is set with a kid. They're not actually birthing the children. They're assigned a birth mother to become and live in that dwelling. Another fault is again sameness concept introduced into the society a while back. No color, no love, and no animals. And that makes everyone pretty sad. Another fault is stirrings, which are basically like dreams that the main character Jonas will have throughout the story. And stirrings will come of age, and the stirring is when Jonas gets a sensation about a person, and in this case, the person's Fiona. And she kind of thinks about her every night, and he has to start taking a pill to stop that, because there can't be any emotion in this society. Another fault is the community is fully controlled. There are cameras watching at all times. If you break a rule, you break 3 rules, you are killed. Another fault is release. A release, the people are, they think it's just being released from the community, but it's actually, as you'll figure out in the book, it's killing. You're getting killed. Now only in 3 hopes. One hope is gaining love. As Jonas stops taking these pills, he will start to feel more emotions, and that will get to him loving multiple people throughout the story. Another hope is Jonas's attempt to getting rid of sameness. So what he will do is he is given memories by this man called Giver, and his goal is to leave the community and release these memories to people in the community. Because a community without pain and love is just a terrible situation. Another hope is when Jonas stops taking the pills. It's when he starts to feel all these emotions and starts experiencing the stirrings that he starts having every night. And he shows great affection to the Giver, Fiona, but Giver the most because he's helped him out the most. And he starts to really love his little brother Gabriel. And at the end, they will release from the society, and they will both end up dying, but they will get rid of sameness in the community, and color will be back. It will be all end up as a great community. Thank you.
My name is Avery Richardson. I read the book The Uglies. I did originally have a partner, but she could not make it. I'll start with my 5 faults about the story. The first one is the heart necklace. The heart necklace is a huge fault for Tally, who's the main character in the story. Dr. Cable, the antagonist, gives her a heart-shaped necklace to activate when she reaches the smoke, which is a city, kind of like a rebel city outside of the main city. Sends special circumstances to her location, but she decides not to set it off. Instead, she throws it into a fire, setting it off by destroying it. This sends special circumstances to her location anyways, and they are able to capture all of the Smokies, which are people who live outside the city. Shay is absolutely infuriated with Tally. That was hers and so many other people's home. The operation is the second fault. The operation turns you pretty once you're 16. They cut you open, cut off your extra fat, give you better features, replace your eyes, and so much more. This is a temptation for Tally. She can't wait to turn pretty. Little does she know, it not only changes the way you look, but it changes the way you think too. It takes away your individual thoughts and makes it so there is no disagreement, conflict, or lashback to the operation. She did not receive this knowledge until she reached the smoke. Lesions is the third fault in the story. Lesions are defects made on your brain during the operation. The doctors will cut into your brain and make it so your individual thoughts are taken away. It takes away your thoughts and makes it so there's no disagreement or lashback on the operation. No one in Pretty Town knows of this. That's why everyone is so eager to get the surgery. The next fault is the orchids. The orchids cause a lot of trouble for Tally and others. The orchids are an invasive species or flower that kill all other nature and prevent it from growing. They take over, causing the rangers, who are Pretties who have escaped to help control the growth, to have to burn them frequently. During Tally's journey, she wakes up in the middle of the night to find herself next to a wildfire. She's burnt badly, but ends up making it out alive, thanks to the Ranger Victoria's rescue. Dr. Cable is another fault. She is Tally's enemy in the story. Dr. Cable is a woman from special circumstances who blackmails Tally into locating the smoke for her. She tells her if she's able to get to the smoke and activate the necklace, they will turn her pretty. If she doesn't, she will stay ugly for life. Tally is put into a tough situation because her good friend Shay had just invited her to the smoke to live there. She's expecting Tally to rival, but Tally will end up betraying Shay accidentally. If she doesn't go, she will stay ugly for life, and it has been Tally's dream to become her. Next are the hopes. The first hope is magazines. In Pretty Town, everyone likes to turn pretty once they turn 16, so there's no concept of ugliness. And so when Tally makes it to the smoke and it shows magazines, it kind of shocks her that people are just out there showing off themselves without being turned into a prettier person. The pill is the next hope, which is supposed to be a cure to the operation. The pill will cure the lesions in your brain, causing you to have all of your thoughts changed back. And it also subtly changes your pretty face back into your. The hoverboard is the last hope in this story, and hoverboards that Tally, Shay, and many of the other Smokies used to help them escape in time. Many times during Tally's journey, she uses the hoverboard to escape sticky situations. This is the use of transportations many of the Smokies used to get around, and that's.
Any questions?
I have a question.
All right, Juju, listen, got a question.
So things that cows help us by making. Do you have a favorite thing that a cow helps us to make that you like to eat?
Milk.
No. Excellent. Milk or regular milk? Well,
Well, thank you for an amazing job.
Well.
Sarah, you want to say something to Justin?
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay,
Justin,
Justin,
very impressed with those students. Takes a lot of guts to get up there and do that.
Yes, they did a great job.
Very cool.
They were very excited for it.
So I'm just gonna pause so people who want to leave can leave without feeling like you're leaving while we're talking. The next part's kind of, yeah, just. So I'm gonna do the approval of minutes so that we can get that kind of finished with. Do I hear a motion for? Do I need to go one by one or can I do all of them at once? Is it a rule?
One by one.
I have to do one by one.
Okay,
Do I have to do one by one?
Because if there's an amendment,
Oh, yeah, okay, all right, all right. Do I hear a motion for the acceptance of the minutes for the Monday, November 14th public session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, okay. Monday, December 12th, public session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Monday, December 12th, non-public session.
So moved.
Second.
I got 2 seconds.
Oh.
We'll do Joe this time, just for a little fun. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Monday, December 19th, public session.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Monday, December 19th, non-public session.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That was fun.
Yeah.
All right. Number 2, our number, actually, it's number 4, but is the fiscal year 23 budget discussion. And I'm going to turn this over to you, I think to you, Joe. Yeah,
Joe,
To
Joe.
Go ahead, Joe.
Giving you
That's all right.
Well, you all have your folders in front of you.
yeah, so we're gonna talk about the budget. And the money parts, we're gonna have Mary talk about, and the other parts I'll discuss. And we're gonna kind of do the history of where we started, where we're going, and then what our recommendation as an admin team is to the board, which you can take as your own, or you can have questions, all of that. But we'll set the scene and then try to answer any questions you might have. Yeah. We're just waiting for it to appear on the magic screen. There.
There we go.
So, this starts off on November 28th. The administrative teams put together a proposed budget of $34,485,146. Change the screen. There was a couple of key budget things that happened in this budget cycle. One of the biggest ones is health insurance, our guaranteed maximum rate, which is as high as it can go, but it may come in lower. I'm not anticipating that. But we budgeted for the 18.2%, which would have been a total increase over fiscal year 23's numbers, if you took all the numbers that were budgeted, of $662,000. The next is the, we looked at putting in instructional resources K-4 literacy, reading, writing, and math for $385,000. There was IT software that was in there, and equipment. That's a 10-year-old server that needs to be replaced, which is roughly $65,000. The second year of the support staff is in there. And a big one is special education out of district placements, is $315,705. Again, that we don't have any control of at all, and it can change. The next is we had some facilities projects that we put into the budget for $480,500. Change the, okay. And we also, in this budget, you'll see that under the IT part of it, under method 5, some of the voice comm that's in there is now being allocated out to the individual schools, because we were able to now figure out what each school is using. So it's being broken out that way out of method 5, and now it's going into the towns or the districts that are towns within their blocks. The next one is to replace our 2008 dump truck for $83,500. There are non-union proposed wages in here of a 5% increase. The amount is 189,000, but that covers Social Security, Medicare, New Hampshire retirement, everything. I just want to point out who this includes. Technology, special education related services, the principals, central office, vocational ed, JROTC staff, and directors of facilities and transportation. I just want to make sure everybody knew who actually is in that.
So I think this might be a good time, let me know. So what this represented was that first number you saw. So we went, we said, okay, these are the key changes that we have to think about and we have to include when we're coming up with that number. Then we took a step back and said, well, okay, is there some way we can meet some of these same needs, but do it in a different way or defer? And that will be the next section that Mary will talk about.
So on this next slide, this is, we went back and we looked at stuff and we decided we could reduce the budget by moving some of these items to the tune of $938,000. We delayed the curriculum of $385,000, but we're looking at $100,000 out of grants for additional literacy resources and $50,000 for mathematics and teaching instruction that will come from a grant as opposed to out of the budget. The next is the facilities. You'll see that normally we have warrant articles where each town has to vote on whether or not we're going to do something or not, but instead we decided this year, anything out of that 488,500 that could go into ESSERs is going to go into ESSERs. So it will not come off of the trusts that we have, but it will be through those, the COVID money or ESSER 1 or 2 and 3, either one, no 3.
So ESSER is a grant that all the schools and a lot of the towns and communities got during the pandemic. And there's certain things that we can use that money for. A lot of ventilation issues with lawn, septic, hygiene, those types of things.
So we could move a lot of those things out. There were some things we couldn't do, like the painting on the school in Ackworth and the leach field in Langdon. So most everything else does qualify under that. Again, the servers were able to be moved in because that's technology. We needed that to upgrade because of our number of our devices we have now due to COVID. The next screen is now, this is what the budget would be at that point, was $33,546,493. Again, that's a $938,000 decrease. Then the next thing is just to kind of go over some of the proposals the budget committee had talked about. Their bottom line budget at the time, again, this isn't set in stone, but this is what they had, was $32,853,492. They talked about reducing 8 teaching positions, 1 in Elstead, 3 in Charlestown, 2 in Walpole, and 2 at the high school for a total of $588,000. Another reduction of $100,000 for unfilled positions, like in our para lines, we're having a hard time filling. So almost like, I don't want to say hedging your bets, but it is saying that, okay, well, if we don't hire these people until mid-year, well, we would have $100,000, but we don't know that that's going to happen. So, but they would like to do that for the unfilled positions. Additional reductions was $33,000. That comes out of the board lines. Part of that was to our staff, professional, no, what is that? I'm sorry. This is the 1-year line. Yeah, the public relations line, along with a couple other small lines. But they also wanted to add in $28,000 for teachers to be able to use for students in a classroom. But that would be put into one of the methods, I believe, or find a line that it would fit into where any teacher could apply for some money. And I don't remember, we didn't come up with
I
a
think it's
dollar.
around $400
Yeah.
per teacher or specific needs that you might have in your classroom.
Or something.
The
Yeah.
conversation was relative to, teachers going and buying or asking families to bring in tissues or bring in this or that.
So the next part, I'm actually going to turn over to Brenda.
Sure.
Because this is, we're a lot of us, so I'm.
Oh, yes,
And he was there.
I was
He's
there.
our fearless.
All right, so then what we did was, so the budget committee came forward, they presented their thoughts, their ideas. A budget committee gets to present the bottom line budget. They can offer suggestions where those cuts should be made. the school board ultimately has that decision with the administration. But so we met as an administrative team to discuss the proposed reduction. And I think the caveat to all of this is, you know, there are things that we can do. You never know the outcome necessarily, but you kind of hit your bets again. What do we think we can accomplish without as much pain as some of the other things? So that becomes important. So under the teacher reductions for the Charlestown attendance area, they had recommended 3 based on some conversations that we had had. The challenge, so as an administrative staff, we don't necessarily love the idea, but we accept it. We understand that we could make 2 out of the 3 reductions. That's going to probably require some type of reconfiguration of grades across the 2 elementary schools in Charlestown. One of the ideas people have floated, but it hasn't been totally vetted in terms of some other aspects, are if you move 4th and 5th grade to North Charlestown and kept K3 at CPS, you could have some sort of reduction in the services needed. Because right now you have people going to both schools. This way you could have them go to 1. Originally, we had talked about a 3rd position, and given our needs in special education, they're not getting any easier, as you saw before. We're not feeling really confident that that would be a great move for this upcoming year. At the high school, we also agreed that we can theoretically do without 2 positions there. One is a math position, one is a science position. And we say we can do without them theoretically because we haven't had an applicant for those positions this year. So we've dealt with it this year. There are repercussions, right? So if you take an individual teacher who teaches any subject at the high school, that's 6 blocks that that individual teacher will not teach. So that's 6 classes of math that aren't being offered. And so that can lead to one of 2 things. It can lead to either larger class sizes, or it can lead to a reduction in the number of classes available, right? And my guess is it would lead to some sort of a combination between those 2. So then the other 3 reductions that were recommended by the budget committee, 2 at Walpole attendance area. The thinking at the time, I believe they can, speak more directly to it, but was maybe combining a class at North Walpole, given the numbers, and rethinking the model at the middle school, Walpole Elementary. We don't necessarily know if that's a bad long-term idea, but we are concerned that we haven't given it enough thought, basically. And that's the same situation that we have in Alsted as well, because that's the same reasoning. Alsted Primary has some really small classes coming up. Does it make sense to do a combination class? I know they do it at Sarah Porter. I know they do it at Ackworth. But from an administrative standpoint, our thinking is we'd really like to think through this a little more deeply. We'd like to be able to work with the board and with others to come up with a comprehensive plan. These situations aren't going away, right, over time, but at least our belief is, at least we can be thoughtful about it as we go through it. So those are the biggies, right? That was the 588, all of the positions. So we're not, as an administrative team, averse to all of it. We just aren't 100% sure that that's the right number. The $100,000 of hedging your bets money, we just, as an administrative team, we get it. We get why you would say that, and we haven't filled those positions, but it just seems like a kind of a weird budgeting approach to us, and we're not overly comfortable with it. Ultimately, we do what the board says and what the voters vote on. But as you know, as a administrative group, it's just not something we can really get behind, I guess. And then that last amount, that 33,000, we went through and re-examined those lines. And we made the changes that we felt comfortable with. And other than that, we think that the amounts we originally budgeted were the correct amounts. Next year, they might not be, but for this upcoming year, we felt that that was true. So what, if you take into account, I think the next slide, I don't have my glasses on so I can see, but I can't see. We ended up reducing the amount by $317,206 additionally, not the 588 plus that they had recommended. So if you take that, I'm turning it back over to you, Mary.
Okay. So with these reductions that we just were talking about, in addition to the 320,000 we talked about previous, right now it would be $174,793 on the high school budget, and that's based on the amounts that I budgeted for those people that aren't there yet. The next one in Charlestown's 131,000. Again, if we're looking at reconfiguring, or we're looking if there is any sort of RIF or layoff situation, it's going to be teachers with the lower end that would be going. So I based it on that. I based it on who we have now and took some of those lower end wages and calculated that out for that reduction. The next thing is, again, it's the reduced school board budget lines, a total of 11,000. Unemployment insurance was in there for 7. I dropped it down to 1. Staff and public relations, there was an offset to this that came from another line under the administrative side of $12,000. So we had eliminated $12,000, moved it into this line, and that's where that increase came from. And based on previous usage of that line, we felt we could live with 12,000 or 25,000 as the amount in there.
Mary?
Just a quick question on that line. Did you include the $28,000 for supplies?
I have not. I
Okay.
have not put that in. No.
I didn't think it was, but I wanted to be clear.
No, I did not. Nope. So in the end, our overall revised budget is $33,229,288. So moving into the summary section, as you can see, the total operating budget decrease that the administration is presenting is $620,041, or 1.73% would be the overall amount. On the next screen, I want to talk a little bit about adequacy aid. As you can see, adequacy aid is dropping. There's going to be, Charlestown's going up, Langdon's gone up, but the other towns have dropped. The state has been trying over the past few years to, I don't want to say play with adequacy aid, but find creative ways to give more adequacy aid. And we're feeling that impact a little bit because, again, they're giving it to us in September of our budget year, so we can't budget for it. We don't know it's coming. They did that to us again this year too, the 300 and some odd thousand. That, just it goes to offset taxes, which is great. But again, we don't know about it. So all we can go off is what they're estimating. The next one that I think is really important is the statewide education tax, or SWEPT. In 2023, they did change this number drastically. This is money that is deemed the town needs to raise out of an adequate education for their students. So as you can see in 2023, it is much lower than what it is in 2024, because it was only a 1-year deal that they dropped that amount. And what that did was give adequacy aid to towns that never got adequacy aid before. And it really messed with the tax rates again. I understood what they were trying to do, but again, now it comes away and now we have to raise more money. The next screen is just a summary of the instructional services section of our budget that shows you it's a $262,000 decrease for regular education, special ed, ESL, vocational, and co-curricular programs. The next one, again, is support services, which has an increase, and this is where that tuition is sitting. So, no, not tuition, I'm sorry, never mind, I'm wrong. So you do see some increases there, under the operations and maintenance of our budget is a big portion of that increase. And then going to defaults. Default budgets, $35,791,563. Default budgets are based on what your previous year budget was, less any one-time expenditures that you had, and any expenditures that are contractual obligations going into the next year. So, teacher sick leave buyback that was in last year, or in this year's budget would come out, and any new teacher sick leave buyback would go in. So the difference between our default budget, which is on the next screen here, and our proposed budget is $503,542 under default budget. But there's a little asterisk down below. You see the $2,058,733. This is actually federal funds and food service money that we have to put into our budget, but it's not part of our general fund. It's part of a different fund. So it'd be like ESSER money and things of that nature, Title I. But we still have to consider it part of our budget because we're raising and appropriating the money, even though we're getting it from a different revenue source. So overall, it's a $503,542 under where the default budget is. So the default would go on is higher than the general budget. And that is all I have.
Yeah, so that's sort of our recommendations and going through the whole process. I think at this point, what we would do is we're happy to answer any questions the board has or anybody else about that.
I have one question. The default budget, as I understand it, there are certain things in that absolutely have to be paid, and there would be other things in there that you might want to do that we can't do because we're on the default budget as opposed to the one that you're proposing.
Yeah.
So that I don't know what those different items would be.
Yeah, so when you calculate it, and correct me at any point, Mary, there's a formula you have to follow.
Right.
And it involves taking out one-time expenses. I think you add in contractual obligations, you add in legal stuff, those types of things. I don't have the exact wording of the thing.
Yeah, I'd have to get that. I did it.
But that's what it basically, you go through the thing and where you end up. Sometimes where it gets a little squirrely in some districts are, like, for example, Sunapee. We put a bus in the budget every year. And the question that always came up is that a one-time expense or is that a yearly expense? Our statement was, it was a yearly expense because every year we did a bus and we were on a schedule. But those are the areas where you tend to have the questions. You know, other than that, it's fairly cut and dry. You keep the positions you have, you don't add new ones, you don't subtract positions. Oh, there you go.
Okay, so, yeah, Misty's great. So default budget means the amount of the same appropriations as contained in the operating budget authorized for the previous year, reduced and increased as the case may be by debt service, contracts, and other obligations previously incurred or mandated by law, and reduced by one-time expenditures contained in the operating budget. Like we bought a copier, that would be a one-time expenditure. Unless we were, unless I was on a lease agreement or on a replacement schedule or something along
Right,
those
so
lines.
what I was asking was if there was a copier in this, in our budget, it wouldn't be in the default budget because it's a one-time expense.
Yes.
So if we went with the default budget, even though it's more money, can't buy that copier.
Well, no, hold on, it isn't that we can't buy it, it's that the money isn't there because right?
Well, to me, that means you can't buy it.
No,
I'm weird like that.
You still set what we purchase.
we still decide what we purchase, so we
Right.
can move money from somewhere else to buy that copier if the copier is needed. So if it went with the default budget and we needed the copier, we would move money around to be able to buy the copier.
But a good example of that, Joe, is a warrant article.
Yeah.
If there's a warrant article that says we're gonna spend $23,000 on painting, or we're gonna replace a leach field and it gets voted down, we cannot spend that money.
Right.
The voters voted no.
Yeah.
So we can't put it into the budget and we can't spend it. Right, so that's the big difference, but you guys can determine.
But we decide,
Need to
we
spend it.
decide where things are spent in the amount of money that the voters approve. The voters approve an amount of money.
Right.
This is just a calculation of how you get to the various amounts of money.
Yes, Andy.
Mary, could you tell me what the last 3 years surpluses were, end of year surplus?
Last year was 1.5 million.
Uh-huh.
The year before that, you're gonna ask, hang on, let me look, because I have it here. I don't remember, Andy. Being in COVID, it was a little bit of a, I don't want to say anomaly, but I don't necessarily think it's information that's valid 100% with COVID, because again, that could change. Sorry, Andy, give me a second here. I gotta find it, because I have to go back on Jim's stuff.
All
I
right,
don't have it all.
Brendan, while she's looking for
All right.
that, the leach field at Sarah Porter,
Yeah.
is that being replaced because it's failing or because we think it's time?
My understanding is it was on the capital improvement plan. And that would be one that would go on a separate warrant article, because we don't believe that we could get ESSER grant money for that.
Okay.
Um,
And I don't know if you can answer this or Mary, but on the on the guaranteed max rate of 18.2%.
Yeah.
At 662. Basically, what is 1% of that equal out of that 662? I mean, if you reduce that by 1%, is that $100,000?
No,
Is it?
I'll tell you in a second. Once I find out where it is. So how much was the total amount?
662,
Six.
18.2%.
We got it over here.
All right, let's see. Go ahead and have him.
$66,000, but
How much is it?
$66,000.
Right.
Is a percent?
Yeah.
60.
I teach math.
Yeah, but
I did not use the calculator, sat right there. I did it in my head.
Don't you just throw the decimal?
You do, yeah.
So let's assume that the surpluses for the last couple of years have been $1 million. And let's assume that the guaranteed max rate is not going to be that. I mean, that's a good place to hedge your bet, is by 1% or 2% to save some money, possibly.
Yeah, the only thing that I've heard about the GMR, and I don't know, you don't know till you get it.
Right.
Is that what has happened is during COVID, oddly enough, people did not go and get as much surgery and hospital related things
Yeah, 'cause
because
it couldn't.
they
Right.
couldn't. And so the rates weren't, the usage wasn't very high, and then it went to the roof, which is why we're at 18.2%. So I would certainly typically agree. I hope that it was 17, 16, whatever. I don't think we can 100% guarantee that this year, but another bet hedging.
So, Andy, to answer your question.
Yep.
Before COVID, in the year 2018-19, we had 64,000 plus 500,000 that was voted to reserve. So 564,000, so 64,000 was returned to the
Yep, yep,
taxpayers. In 2020, which is right around the beginning of COVID, we had, yeah, here it's taking a minute. It's not playing nicely. That's nice. Must be my wife. Sorry, Andy. I don't know why it's not. So in, for 2020, we had 500,000 plus 196,000. So for a total of 696. Then the next year, in 2021, we had 1.5 million and nothing went to the, that was the year that nothing went into the trust funds. Last year, we had 1.5 million again. 500,000 went into the individual town trust funds and $1 million went to our bottom line. Again, you know, it comes down to our salary lines and things of that nature.
I'm just thinking that,
I'm with you.
you know, the budget committee could have considered that when they came up with their numbers. They could have considered hedging bets, looking at surpluses, maybe. One thing I do want to applaud the administration for is revamping, going back to the drawing board and getting really close to the budget committee's number. That's impressive. I wish that happens initially, not having to go back to the drawing board. In my opinion, and I've said this for 10 years or so, is that our budgets are becoming unsustainable to the general public. You know, they're increasing at $500,000 a year or more. And it's not going to take long before more and more people can't pay their taxes. And between the budget committee and the school board, we've got at least 3 selectmen that are on those committees. And they know what's happening in the towns. They know the tax liens, they know the people that are late on their bills. And it's getting tougher and tougher. It's really hard to justify increases with decreasing populations. Even though costs go up, I understand that. But I think, you know, year after year, we talk about, okay, well, we need to start this conversation, or, okay, we need to look at this long-term, or, okay, we need to come up with this plan, and we never do. We never start it. It's the same talk every year. But we need to really look at the way we're providing education, look at consolidation, look at what we can do. You know, we're all in this together. It's not just schools against the taxpayers, you know, it's our communities. So I came into this meeting really ready to support the budget committee's number, but seeing what you've done and seeing how close you are, I think I've changed my mind. I'm impressed with what you've done. So thank you.
Mary, I have a question, which I know has been asked before, and I'm sure that it's been answered, but I never write it down, so I'm gonna write it down this time.
Okay.
And because when this goes, I mean, when we present this PowerPoint to everyone, on support services where it says under school board that there's an increase of 44.9%.
Yes,
I mean,
I can tell you what that is.
that's gonna come up. What the heck is that?
It's okay, so when I went through the budget for last year, for 2023, for 2024 and 2022,
Mhm.
there were some differences that I found within them, meaning that, for instance, our legal line had been cut by roughly $40,000 in this year. I don't know why I didn't create the budget, so I can't answer that question, but I know we're at $90,000 this year.
Mhm.
So we're over budget in that legal line, and we usually spend around 76,000 based on the past.
Mhm.
So we increased that legal line. That's a big amount of that. The other portion of it was the, on here, Sarah, because I have it. I knew that was probably gonna be an ask. Someone else. Yeah, and the public relations line is there, and of course, again, 12,000 of that came from the 2410 area, which is under the superintendents. We eliminated the superintendent's, what was it called again? Discretionary fund.
Uh-huh.
And we moved it up there because basically that's what that money was being used for, parts of it. So it got moved into there to bring that in, because we usually overspend that line. And again, it was the 7,000 before the liability. We're self-insured. Again, I know comment was made, how many people do we lay off? Well, I also know that people can either leave and get unemployment too. So we don't just have to lay off people to pay unemployment. And given the direction we're going or possibly going, you want to make sure you have something in there just in case. $1,000 isn't a lot, but I will, if it happens, it happens. If not, the other thing is our general liability insurance is up. We did not put enough in there as well this year. It went up about 25%, and we did not budget for the 25%, and it's probably I'm budgeting another 25%. It's just going up. I am shopping it and looking around to see what we can find. I'm also looking at, again, like I've talked to the budget committee about self-insuring our health insurance again. I'm gonna start looking at that and putting that out this month, actually, and see what that looks like. So hopefully, if we can save some money there, I don't know, given the market and the way it is, of course, coming out of COVID, that it may not be something that is gonna save us money, but again, we need to look at it. So, any way that we can save money in that area, going to do my best.
Thanks.
Insurance if we can. But those
I
usually,
wrote it down this time.
yeah, and those are big amounts, and that's why that line is up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have some questions about like specific lines in the budget. Do you want those now, or should I just send those at another?
I think you can, yeah, we can start, if it starts getting
Well,
beyond,
I-
well, you know,
They're not really downtrodden, but I have a question about retirement wages for the Alstead attendance area. I didn't see a line included for that, and I'm wondering if we need to make sure we add that in.
There should be a retirement line in the FL stuff.
There should be.
In there, I believe that. Sure there is, 'cause I know we have people that are still getting money out of that would have been paid over. Let me look at that, but anyways, go on and I'm
Okay.
gonna look it up.
So I had a question about specifically the CFO or BA position. I know Jim Fenn had changed his designation to CFO for particular reasons regarding New Hampshire retirement, I believe. So I'm wondering how we're doing that currently, because I see that there's a new amount. Does that mean we've changed back from CFO to BA?
That was the decision of the contract, not mine. I would have probably not paid that. But
Okay.
we're paying more for me. We're paying, well, it's gonna be $11,000 more. Because you're giving me the BA designation, because I'm paying what a teacher pays, even though the superintendent and them pay what an employee pays. For some reason,
Say that
they bumped us at, I'm paying 21.02%. The district is on me instead of 14.06.
There's two groups for
Okay.
education people. Teachers and employees.
And so employees,
It's
Have a-
much, at the moment, it's much less than the teacher rate. And so the BAs, some BAs have gotten to change their name to something else. CFO, whatever, so that they get a lower rate.
okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Then let's see. I have a question regarding speech and language pathologist and audiologist. I wonder how many we have in the district.
We
have two in-district speech and language pathologists by contract for two.
Okay, so the two that are in district, are those specific town?
They're district-wide.
Everybody is district-wide?
Everybody's district-wide, and then they end up dividing up into each specific town, different schools. But, you know, depending on next year, we're probably looking at two in district and one possibly, again, contracted. So they'll just divvy up the district that way.
Okay, then my concern for Mary is that it appears that there's an apportionment to Charlestown that's 100%, appears to be 100% of somebody's salary, whereas I'm believing they should all be in method 6. I just would like to look at that and make sure that that's apportioned properly.
Okay,
Thank you.
and what account number is it sitting in right now? You can do that so I can look. Do you have it, the line number or not?
Oh, I didn't write it down. I apologize, but I am certain I can pull it up here somewhere.
I'll find it, don't worry about it.
I will. And I think the rest of my questions have to do with not necessarily the budget, but whether we move forward with adjusting the schools and whatnot. So if we want to
oh, okay.
move to that, I appreciate it.
And I do have money budgeted in that line, in the retirement line.
Yes,
Okay,
that's what made me ask the question. I was like, it went from 0 to,
we do have people that are in there that.
oh, you're talking about that Alston line that I'm looking at?
Yeah, I
Okay.
have two people in that line.
I'm gonna find out where I was.
I have it under 10, 1100, 145, 100. Then we have 101 and 110 as well.
Okay. Those are under
They're 145.
Under- But should there be an administrative office of the principal?
There's a retirement superintendent line, but principals and stuff are all in with the teachers, I believe. I will double check, but I don't know if I have a line number for that. I'll have to look at my chart.
I apologize for not writing the number down.
That's okay.
Are there other questions, as we're looking for that, are there other questions that people have? Yep, go ahead.
So I'm new to the board and just want to make sure I understand the process. The budget that you just presented to us today will not be going before the voters. It'll not be on Thursday. We won't be talking about that budget on Thursday.
Yeah,
We'll talk about your budget.
yeah, so our understanding of Thursday, and we checked again today to make sure that we're clear, is that the budget committee will present what they have to present. The administration will probably go through that same thing we did today, because that's our recommendation. And then once the budget hearing is closed, the school board will need to vote whether or not they recommend that budget or not.
That, which we say that budget, there's two.
Right, whether they're gonna recommend the budget committee's budget, because that's the one that's gonna show up on the warrant,
Yes,
whatever that budget amount is.
and that's the budget that will go before the voters when they vote on the
Well,
warrant.
so then what would happen, so the budget committee could decide to change it
Right.
prior to the budget hearing. After the budget hearing, they could have another hearing if they wanted to change it. Or at the deliberative, anyone can, you know, make a motion to change it by 10%, which is $3 million, so it's quite sizable, up or down.
And on your MS 27, it will show both budgets. So it'll show the budget committee's budget, and it'll show the school board's budget as well. Even though it won't show on the warrant, it will show up on the MS 27. So if you do have a separate budget number, both of them will show with the warrant.
So
Yeah.
the MS 26.
It's a state number for the DRA, Department of Revenue Administration. We have to pull out those papers that you guys sign,
Okay,
and that would go as part of the posting like Misty said. So it will show yours and theirs unless you guys have, like, unless you come to some sort of agreement, then it will be the same.
I'm still confused on that. I'm
Um,
sorry, I don't mean
that's
to
okay,
be,
so
It's just documents.
The posting that goes up in all of the towns.
okay,
The
okay,
warrant and all of the warrant articles
okay,
And that one shows.
includes the
both
MS 27
numbers.
versus the MS 26 that we used to have before we had a budget.
okay. And so then the public can vote whether, okay,
No.
so why are both of them on there if the public,
Because
what
that's
is,
the requirement.
okay, so what will the public will vote on the budget committee's budget? And it's just whether we support, whether we will vote on whether we support that, it'll still go in front of the voters, but we just say whether the board supports that or not. Okay, all
but
right,
you have to have your own number.
okay,
You have to come up with your own number.
okay.
That would be all.
I think I'm starting to understand. It's getting clearer. Sorry, it kept going out of focus and I wasn't sure whether I was supposed to be leading these guys through budget discussions or other things, and we were doing, so there's so many things that we're trying to do, so, okay. All right, are there other questions?
I just want to clarify
Okay,
that what I
yes.
was looking
I'm
at.
sorry, you had time to look that up. That's what I was giving you time to do, and I forgot
that.
to go back to.
So the code I was looking for, retirement wages for principal, was the 10-24-10-145.
Yep.
And then I see that we have one in here for Charlestown, for Walpole, and for the high school, but not for Alston. And that's where my
Yeah,
question
and-
arose from.
We probably don't have one set up and it just got put into the teacher early retirement area. We can just change that and put it.
So it does still need to be added.
Yeah, we can make it
Okay.
its own line.
Thank you.
It's there, it just needs to be put into the right spot. It's in the teacher's early retirement book. It's sitting in the right, in there. It just needs to be
Clarified.
created, the line is not created.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
We don't have one for it, so we haven't.
Haven't had one so long.
Been a long time.
All right. All right. Other questions for the budget discussion?
Do we want to discuss how we feel about the letter from the administration?
Yeah.
I appreciate all of the thoughts and everything that went into it. And I'll second Andy saying I appreciate how you were able to come down and get very close to what the budget committee presented. I would really like to add to our agenda for the coming summer or spring even to address the things you all feel need addressing if they're not going to be instituted immediately, which I suppose we need to all decide how we're going to do so. Because that number will be hard to get to on pens and paper. Oh, sorry. It will be hard to get to the budget committee's number of reducing pens and paper if we don't discuss the changes to personnel that are being recommended. And so I don't know if that's a today conversation or if that's something we should schedule for April or May.
I guess I'm a little confused on what it is that you're suggesting.
Well, I'm suggesting that perhaps we have a committee that studies whether combined classes in
For the
in Alsted,
effectiveness of,
Attendance
the
area or
effectiveness of,
Walpole,
yeah, okay.
versus just say it's going to be done and that's it. I don't think that's the right process to take.
I guess it kind of depends on whether we move forward with the combined classes. I mean, if they get combined, then we can take data and see how the kids do, but.
Well, even if the town doesn't pass the budget and we get the default budget and we have
Mhm.
the larger amount of money, we still need to consider what the right size classrooms are.
Right.
What is happening with our
I
enrollment.
I do think
So
that that's very true, yes.
I would like to see that addressed.
My recommendation to the board and the budget committee both is that there really needs to be a dedicated process, because what happens is what you're saying, we all want to think about these things. But then we also have to deal with the day-to-day life of running a $33 million budget, and it's kind of hard to fit that in. So my recommendation would be, once you get through this cycle, right? So once you get through the vote, figure out how you want to do it. Do you need to bring someone in to help guide it? Do you want to set up a committee that meets monthly or whatever? But create some type of a process. We tried to kind of split the difference, the questions that were, I think, a little meatier that you have to go and get the information on. We were saying, let's think about that so that we don't make a rash decision. But I honestly think, as you said, Andy, for the good of the towns, for the good of the Fall Mountain District, we need to make sure that we have really good answers for why we're doing what we're doing, because of the costs involved. It's very impressive.
I'd like to second that and to say that I really do appreciate the budget committee really bringing these hard questions to us and making us really do something about them. I think if nothing we've learned this budget cycle, we've learned we really need to start looking, we need to start moving the train in that direction. I am concerned that we're gonna have we've been open your job. Superintendent, yeah. And we have
Joe's job.
Joe's job. And we have 3 principal openings. So we have a whole new admin team coming in, which will be very hard to start in April to start moving that train. I feel like we have to wait until we get through elections. And then we start to get a admin team that we're going to have next for the future. It's tough.
My concern with that is if this budget passes, we need to know what we're doing in August. And the parents need to know what we're doing. And that's going to happen really fast.
So that's true. Then we do have, if the budget does pass, we do need to have a plan.
Yeah.
Because my understanding too is even though the budget said the budget committee suggested that we combine classes. We don't have to do that.
We don't have to
We
do
we can
that.
find other ways to
Yeah.
save that money. Like you said, the finding, right now, we're $375,000 off between the two of us. So we have to find a way, if that budget passes, to make up the $375,000. We can do that. There might be ways to do that without combining classes.
You can also have me come up with that stuff and then blame the superintendent.
Very good.
That would be a gift.
Somebody someday is gonna go to Minnesota.
I would say something from Minnesota, but I don't know the words.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they do that. They do say that, sack or something like that.
So I'd like to proactively put this on our agenda for April.
Can we add that in there, Misty?
Thank you.
All right, is there more discussion on the budget that we want to? Wanted discussion, so, the next, it kind of goes along with that. The next item on our agenda is recognition of visitors. There's a lot of you. I'm assuming that, why there's a lot of you is discussion of budget. So, I would add, and we certainly want to hear people's opinions and people's ideas. There are some parameters to discussion to when you're speaking here, and you can, we're welcoming your thoughts. We want those. We want to know what you're thinking and what your ideas are around whatever it is you're bringing, but if it's about the budget, we ask that you not speak specifically about a specific individual. If you have issues around a specific individual, let one of us know, and we'll do that at a different, we'll do that in a closed session as opposed to in public session. Okay, we don't want to bust somebody in public session. So, okay, we also, there's a lot of you, so I will be limiting how long people go on. If someone has already said what you have to say, you might think that maybe you don't need to say it again, but you're certainly welcome to, in brief, say, I agree with, and kind of round out what that person said, okay? Because, a lot of us, we don't necessarily want to then not say anything, but hearing the same thing over and over 50 times is like, okay, and other people, I won't, of course, but some people might zone out. So, when you speak, I'd like you to speak loudly so everyone hears you to the back of the room. Sorry about that. I'm not necessarily doing that. But you need to state your name and the town that you're from. We would. Oh, and yes, and we do want you to come forward so that the you want the owl to be able to pick them up? Okay, see this little lovely owl right here? Do you know what that is? That little stand thing there. That we lovingly call that the owl. It will swivel to look at you. It's a little weird sometimes, but so we want the owl to be able to hear you so that people who are listening can hear you all that aren't here can also hear you. Okay, so is there anyone who would like to speak? All right, hearing no one. No, I'm just kidding.
Come on, man, now's your chance to let us have it.
Well, hey, everyone. Craig Vickers, Walpole. Peace, all of you, and you. I really don't know where to stand. I'll stand right here, so it's not shining in my eyes.
Yeah, you should address the board.
Okay. So I'm a little befuddled. If you're able to answer the budget question of, there's the budget committee's budget proposal that we are voting on. And then how do your budget recommendations and your budget come into play of what we're actually voting on? So could you paint a scenario for us where we actually, we have to operate under the budget committee's budget. That I'm not entirely following along with what that scenario might be. When it comes to decreasing the number of teachers that we operate with, or frankly, anything that happens in Walpole, with the K-8 budget that is supposed to be put together by Walpole administration, where does that come into play? Why is that not being presented to us in the breakdown of the total budget? So that we as Walpole can see that. And I know there's an answer to this, but it would be helpful, I think, for everybody to understand why that is, because we do develop our own K-8 budgets. And then I think for everybody that's here, and there's a big group of people here and they're interested in why the Fall Mountain Budget Committee is making decisions for the Walpole attendance area. Where are we at in terms of the articles of agreement recommendations from 3 years ago that we either needed to fix or address? And I know we're looking at those things, or you guys are looking at those things. Or the sort of flip side recommendation was that we all need to have a separate school board in order to do this on our own. So I know I put a lot out there at you, but those are my questions. I'm taking your time.
Okay, so I just want to clarify the questions. So one question was, because it kind of I got mixed up there. One question was, why is the budget committee deciding on Walpole's budget? Is that one of the questions?
In conjunction with the fact that the Walpole administrative team puts together the K-8 budget, and my understanding is that they're the ones that have the best understanding of the needs for the teachers.
Okay, so why is okay, I get that question. That was one question. Your second question was, that seemed to be the brunt of your question. What, I guess I'm asking.
Well, that is the brunt of it, aside from the fact that just explaining how do we get to a point where we're actually operating under the budget committee's budget.
Okay, oh, and you
Like,
wanted to see
Sarah,
what would the budget committee, what would it look like if we were operating?
how do
under
we
that?
get to that point or not get to that point, I should say, from a voting perspective.
Oh, from a
If
voting,
that's what is on the warrant article that we are voting for, and the majority of people that are actually voting on this budget say, I don't really like this budget, then how do they adjust it?
okay, so, go ahead, Andy, I'm gonna let you.
All right. Because I like to talk simply so people can understand. The budget committee was formed because the voters voted in a budget committee. So we have a budget committee. On the warrant article that you're gonna vote on in March, you're gonna see two numbers. You're gonna see the budget committee,
No.
you're gonna see the default, and you're gonna see the budget committee's number. You're gonna see two numbers. Simple. Budget committee's number, default budget. One will be higher, one will be lower. The administration generally waits to see what number they have to work with after the vote is taken. All right, that's why we have all these meetings, all the budget hearings, so we can discuss different things and hash things out. But your question about Walpole attendance area, when the vote comes in, whether it is a lower number or a higher number, the Walpole administration team is going to figure out what money they have and where they're going to put it to the best use. They're going to figure it out. They're going to recommend it to the school board, and the school board's going to approve it because they know what they're doing in their attendance area.
If I can just add
Very
one,
simple.
if I can add one piece to that, the budget committee did not, without any rhyme nor reason, just come up with these numbers. The budget committee discussed and had many meetings with, and I think we'll get some nods of heads, many discussions with the administrators of the various schools, in terms of what?
Mostly Brennan and I.
Mostly you guys, okay. And just to be able to get information, and well, I know they asked for a lot of information. They were asking for a lot of information about those very numbers that you're asking about, Craig. What are the numbers? What is it that is going on in the schools? What's needed in the schools? They asked a lot of those, they asked for those questions because the voters voted in for the budget committee to create the budget. That's what the voters voted in.
So in years past, budget committees have just come up with a number. We want to reduce the budget by $3 million, $2 million, $5 million. No rhyme or reason. They wanted to reduce the number. This budget committee did a lot of homework, did a lot of, interaction with the administration, and have suggested cuts, suggested savings, suggested places where you could save money. None of that it's all taken under advisement. It doesn't mean any of their suggested cuts would happen. And probably, I wouldn't recommend some of the cuts they made. I would look other places, which I think there are other places to look. But obviously, we are not going to do anything that's going to take away from the students' achievement or experience here in our schools. And I think that we can do that with whatever number we're presenting.
The other thing to remember is that we have we have a hearing that's coming up. And then we have the actual deliberative session. And at the deliberative session, we have, I think we've all experienced where we have lost chunks of our budget. Well, the opposite can happen as well. Y'all can decide you want to add in and say, we want this added in. I can't really because I'm the chair of the school board, so, but that is, the deliberative, that's what the deliberative session is for, is to deliberate that budget and give the direct democracy a chance right there, okay? That used to be what we used to have in the, I don't know if some of you are way too young to remember it, but we used to have a really long meeting in the gym. And it was like, for those of us that taught, it was like the book, The Lottery, where they stone somebody, and we would, at the end of it, end up with a budget, and we would go up and we'd go down and we'd go all over the place, but at the end of it, we had a budget, so. Now we just do one deliberative session and then we vote.
So if the taxpayers vote down the budget that's presented by the budget committee, then will it go to the default budget, which
Yes.
is 35, whatever? it is?
Yes, then it would go to the default budget, which is actually more than what is being presented as the budget, yes.
Or at the deliberative, we could adjust the budget committees by up to 10%.
Correct. Okay, do you have more, Craig? Did I answer your question? Or did we, I'm sorry, not I, I'm sorry, Andy. Did we answer your questions?
Yeah, I think for
Kinda,
that.
kinda, sorta.
I think everybody's here, I'm making assumptions, but we're concerned about losing our teachers, and that's a giant concern. And I certainly can't speak for everybody, but I don't want that to happen. And certainly not within a year's worth of time from looking at that. And I think there are certainly things that can be done. That just seems abrupt, so.
Yes, did you want to say something?
No, I'm just listening and
It seemed like you were ready to say.
I got thoughts going, but they're not for today.
Yes, ma'am.
Fancy.
Move forward.
So,
And your name and the town you're from.
yes, I'm Carolyn LaVale and I'm from Walpole. And I had a prepared statement, which I'm not going to address because I'm just going to speak to you. My husband and I are retired, so we lived on a fixed income. And we're concerned about our taxes like everyone, but I am never willing to compromise or make decisions about our schools only based on taxes, ever. I appreciate those who are struggling. It's not easy for anyone, but that's not the reason to make all the decisions that we make. I voted for the budget committee because I thought it was prudent always to look at better ways to do things. But I didn't know they were going, this is on me. I didn't understand that they were going to present a budget. I elected school board members. I didn't elect the people in the budget committee. So I'm looking to all of you to help us make the best choices about the budget. I looked at today at the available minutes from the budget committee and the discussion of enrollment and combo classes and fewer schools and all of that is only first recorded in their minutes at their October 26th meeting. In fact, the issues referenced in those minutes as the elephant in the room. And an action item from that meeting was to develop a high-level position statement regarding classroom accommodations and or school consolidations for the school board. So based on the school board minutes, a letter discussing these issues was presented at the school board budget committee workshop on November 28th, which was 4 weeks later. The letter was very high level, and it did not include any specific data to support the specific recommendations, no hard data. I agree with you today. The district, you're looking for superintendent, you're looking for 3 principals. You have a business administrator who, my hat's off to you, you're very knowledgeable, but you've been in the job less than a year. And the budget committee has met for less than a year. This is so important. So let's move forward with thoughtful, measured efforts. Not take action on something that's been discussed for a couple of months. Put together a group, administrators, teachers, parents, community members, people who can come together and only look at enrollment and the choices that we need to make for that. Not every other budget item, not every other school item, but just the enrollment and what that means. It is something we have to address long-term. There's no question. But now with all the vacancies, our kids and our administrators coming out of 2 years of the pandemic, this isn't the time to make choices about combo classes and cutting teachers and all of that. And I just implore you not to make those decisions for this budget cycle, but let's do a thoughtful, measured approach and look for a long-term solution. So thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
My name is Heidi Plummer, a special educator here. I'd like to talk about the cuts that are being proposed, how it's going to affect a lot of different aspects of our children's education, your children's education. $100,000 being saved in case we can fill those positions. It's detrimental. It's detrimental to the special ed department. It's just. It's not right. It's not right to say because we can't fill those positions, we're just going to take that money and put it somewhere else. Those positions are vital to special education. when I started here 4 years ago, I started in this district 20 years ago as a paraeducator, working well below poverty level. As a single mother, I worked 3 jobs to make ends meet, to pay my taxes on my home in Alstead. Struggling all the time because I worked below the poverty level. We are still offering below the poverty level to these paraeducators. And we're curious why we're not filling those positions. Because I will tell you that my niece makes more, or could make more, I should say, working at McDonald's, working at Walmart, than she does as a paraeducator in special education. That's a problem. That's a problem. When I started here 4 years ago, I started with a team of 5 paraeducators, an amazing team. I have 2.5 right now. 2.5 to service 19 kids. And that is only special ed. They're only servicing special ed students, and there are a lot of students in need in those classrooms. In 5th grade alone, there's a significant amount of needs in 5th grade. I have 1 para upstairs in 5th grade between 2 classrooms. These children are already suffering. And to say because we can't fill the position due to the fact that we're not paying them a sufficient amount of money to work in the first place, it's disgusting to me. I just think that we need to really step back. I voted for the budget committee. I thought, again, on me, I thought what the plan of the budget committee was to come in and help, not come in and dictate where cuts were going to be made, not come in and say, we need to cut teachers. Look at combining classes, do the research on what homogeneously grouping students is going to do to that. First of all, you can't do it. You can't legally homogeneously group these kids. And it's in one of the letters.
Yeah, you need to address us.
I'm sorry.
Mhm.
It's in one of the letters from the budget committee saying that you'll group them by ability. It was stated by one of the budget committee members, I'm not going to say a name,
Remember, yep.
to cherry pick. Those words were used. You can cherry pick your classroom. So the kids that don't have needs, you guys get to cherry pick them, teachers, but the kids that do have needs, we have to homogeneously group them because we don't have enough support staff to manage them. You can't homogeneously group. And since we're looking at positions that aren't filled, that we can't fill, and we're gonna put that money where? Take it away? Well, what happens if we can fill those positions? And are we looking at the multiple coaching positions that are unfilled? Are we taking that money away? Or are we just hoping we can fill a coaching position? And is that more important than a special ed position?
Thank you. You can wait for 1 second because we have.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I just wanted to address a few things, Heidi. Thank you very much. I want to be clear that I had the privilege of attending all of the budget committee meetings. It was a group of very dedicated and very knowledgeable people who were chosen by statute by our moderator. Every one of those positions will be up for election. So you do get an opportunity to vote on your town's budget committee member this coming year. They did not take any of this lightly. Every single thing was discussed and thought out and thoughtfully put into where they presented. But I wanted to specifically address that 100,000. Not one single FTE would be changing. It would simply be taking essentially half a year's wages and not having them in the budget. So that even if we are able to hire somebody, that money is already there. We haven't reduced positions or wouldn't reduce positions with that change. It would simply be saying, let's not charge the taxpayers for the money we're not likely to hire before December and use it over a longer term. Is that clear? So the budget committee definitely considered the fact that we need these positions. They weren't saying don't hire them. They weren't saying that they're not important or that we don't need them, but just that we haven't filled them. We shouldn't include payment for these until we can hire somebody. So there shouldn't be any fear about not having those positions filled. And that was all I had to that.
Now you.
Sylvia Fry, Walpole, grew up in Charlestown, moved a long way. I've worked in this district 24 years. And this year, and I love coming every day, but this year in 5th grade, we have 7 students. Where 2 of them would have years past have an individual aid. I feel I'm not getting to all 7. Everybody's backing me up. But also no subs. So then you're pulled away with the teacher. And I just think the IEP is a legal document and their services should be met. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Stacy Parrott. I am the 7th science teacher here. I live in Austin. I've got 2 littles that are going to be coming up the district over the next coming years. I wanted to really speak primarily on behalf of the kids. As let's get real, they're not the ones coming up here, try to talk to you guys, because I'll also be honest, it's intimidating to be up here. I know. Let's just put that out there. So a couple of things that I just wanted to bring both from experience and just generally from the population and what I've got to know here. I didn't always work in this district. I used to work further up the river. And in that school district, we had to have combined classrooms for multiple reasons, mostly because it was puny at best. And the classes were really small. That said, in those combined classrooms, having a paraprofessional is quite simply non-negotiable. So we have to be really careful if we're going to start making decisions like, oh, we can combine these classrooms while also cutting the paraprofessional line. That balance, you have to really watch that because I from experience, I've seen it. It's difficult. It's truly difficult to fully serve students in a combined classroom when your parents even just not there for the day, or if they're out for a few days sick. You see the stress. You know what I mean? It's a difficult thing to maintain. So I just want to kind of put that forward as something that really, if that is something that continues to be brought up, that really needs to be very carefully considered. And in terms of looking at teaching cuts possibly being made at higher levels, I mean, in our school, we're really, really fortunate to be able to have our students have math and science pretty much every day. And because of our structure, because of the fact that we have a dedicated reading teacher who is an absolute boss. Sorry. But because we have all of these positions, our students are getting additional exposure to us. The benefits from that, not only do they show in our test scores, but if you look at studies, I mean, there was a study conducted in, I think, 2014 out of Stanford that showed a statistical significance in terms of the improvements in math scores of students who had math at least once a day, if not more than that. On top of that, you have to consider the fact that right now the science fields are growing. I mean, they're on pace with most other projected things, but if you look at it's a study done by the Bureau of Labor. They're also projected to continue to grow at least 7% more by the time 2033, I think, rolls around. We can't be cutting positions and then therefore taking away those opportunities from these kids when yet another study came out that said, this one was also by the Bureau of Labor, I believe, over the next 10 years, positions that require some extent of secondary education, whether that's an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, are expected to go up. It's expected to be 51% of jobs, at least. So if we're removing these opportunities from our kids at the middle school level or at the high school level, what are we doing to them? I understand the budget's important. I'm a taxpayer too, right? But you could also make the argument that our district is only valuable or as valuable as the products that we're putting out.
And if we're taking away bits and pieces of their education, if we're chipping away at that, what are we sending out? Like.
If I can really, really stress that the budget hearing and the deliberative session are really, really important for attendance, for people to come out to and to do the scary thing. I know, I've stood there, I've gotten up there and do the scary thing of talking in front of everyone. It's important for your voice to be heard. It's democracy in action, so.
What are the dates?
The,
January 12th.
So Thursday is the budget
This
hearing.
Thursday.
Yeah.
And we have your.
yes, come forward.
My name's Nick LaBelle from Walpole. I wear two hats. I'm a teacher in this building, social studies, but I have a son in kindergarten at the primary school. And, as a teacher with so much coming up, I would really encourage the people making the decisions to come into the schools and see the impact that the educators are having. And before you make the decision, you can see stuff on paper, you can read it on paper, but reading it, seeing it, they're two different things. So I would encourage you guys 3 days before the budget meeting and then whatever else, come in and see what's happening in the schools. Secondly, as a parent, these decisions have consequences. My son's not a guinea pig to figure this out. The other students in our attendance areas and district are not guinea pigs to figure this out. I understand money's tough. I work 2 jobs right now to live in Walpole, so my kid can go to school here. Money's tough. Decisions have to be made, but not as quick as they're happening. So I would implore you guys not to support the cuts that are being proposed, but rather look at this over the long term. I heard a comment, I know it was just in comment, but when you guys were discussing the committee or the combined classrooms, we said, do we combine them and then take data on what's happening? That's not fair to our kids. If my job gets cut, I can get another job. My son can't do second grade over again. Okay, it's not fair to those guys. So I would say, please slow down. Cuts have to be made. Do it with a plan in place. Look at things over. Thank you.
Comments there?
Oh, hold on one second, let Andy make a comment. Yep.
Just listening to you guys tonight, I really appreciate your coming up here. I'm from Walpole. I lived here my whole life. I went to this school. I went to Fall Mountain. And what I've found over the years is that it's not going to matter in Walpole what the bottom line is, because Walpole has the best teachers, the best parent support, the best administration, that any town could ever ask for. And if for some reason the budget gets cut, the site base will step up, the fundraisers will happen, the parents will step up, and we will have a quality education that we always have, that we have since I went here. And it's just going to happen. And I'm picking out Walpole now because I'm from Walpole and I'm here, but it happens in every town. And Sarah said something about data, about combined classrooms. We have plenty of data. We have combined classrooms in the district. They're in Sarah Porter, they're in Ackworth, and they work. They have worked. They've worked for years. I'm not saying that's the route we're going, but it's an option to look at, like everyone said, in the future, not right today. So. Go ahead, Jackie.
My name's Jackie Ronnie and I teach 5th grade here. And I am a Walpole resident. And I also was a Fall Mountain graduate, K through 12. And some of my students are sitting here, so something I'm gonna say, you will hear and remember. I always tell the kids proper preparation prevents poor performance, right, guys? And it's really true. The more prepared we are for the huge changes in population distribution, etc.,
the better off we're going to be. So if we take a step back, and this is district-wide, it's not just for Walpole, we are a district, we are a family. Fall Mountain is a family, that's why I came back to teach here. If we take a step back and come up with a 3 to 5 year plan, I really think we're better off. The budget committee, very knowledgeable people. I'm certain, in fact, I know for a fact that they did a lot of homework, did their job. But all of us together need to take a step back and plan for this. Please don't put the kids in this position. Thank you.
If I can just add to something on that, many years ago, when I was young and teaching at the high school, I was special ed teacher at the high school, and we noticed that a lot of kids were having difficulty with reading. And we took a look to see what exactly was going on, why these numbers were going up. And we discovered that one of the reasons was that we were changing our reading program in the district, in the different towns, kind of whimsy-whamsy, and pretty much every year. And it was flip-flopping and flip-flopping. There was not a rhyme or reason to what was happening in terms of our reading program. And our numbers in special ed were going up, and our reading, we weren't doing all of the testing at that point. This is how long ago it was. We weren't doing as much testing as we are now, but our reading ability of our kids was definitely suffering. We Lisa Renaro and I made a bit of a stink about this, as we were known to do. And we brought it to the attention of the central office, and something started to be done. You know, they did start to look at that across the district, and we started to look at, instead of just changing reading programs, looking at how is this what is it that we're doing with this? Why is it that we're making a change? How is it that it's going to impact? And hey, maybe we should all be doing the same thing across the district, and some kind of a district-wide concept to reading programs. And it didn't happen immediately, but it slowly evolved to where we have a curriculum coordinator, and we have, it's all because of me. No, it's not at all. But it means that we are thinking about what we're doing in terms of curriculum decisions. And so I want to assure people that we do think about the things that we're doing in terms of curriculum decisions and those things, but as a community member and a taxpayer here too, I do think it's important for us to think about what the impacts are of the changes that are being suggested. I know that at Ackworth, we have, my children are the products of combined classrooms. They're a lawyer in New York City and a veterinarian. So a veterinary dentist, as a matter of fact, but and doing very well. So and we in Ackworth, because there wasn't enough money to keep our fifth graders, or to make the building big enough to hold our fifth graders, we came together as parents and built a whole room, which of course then now there's not enough kids to build to keep the fifth graders. So we don't have them, but we still have the room. It's really beautiful. So you know, but that's a Fall Mountain thing. We come together and we pull together when we need to do it. So so the important thing is that you all come out and have your voices be heard. So I'm really glad you're here tonight. This is really, really important. So, and I'm not closing it down. If there's more people that want to talk, you can. So.
Hi, my name is Iria Dosher. I'm still a pretty new person in this town. Only lived here for a little bit more than a year. Moved from Texas, homeschooler all of our life. We moved here, we moved our kids to Waldorf schools in Keene and one to another charter school down there. It was very quickly obvious that one of my children did not like Waldorf schooling, even though they did that at home. He moved here, super successful, is now a freshman at Fall Mountain. Our MC Square kid moved also to Fall Mountain. Happy as can be, even though he still hates school, but he's a teenager. You know, But he's excelling and he's never excelled in school except for at home because I was there. Well, to keep the thumbs on him. My two daughters, 7th grader has an IEP and my 8th grader, we moved them deliberately from the charter school in Keene with a classroom size of 25 kids, which was normal when I grew up in Europe, to here because they were suffering. They were suffering in their education of what they got. My 8th grader did not get daily English classes. She did not get daily science. She craved that. So we said, we need to make a switch. And my IEP kid, she didn't get the services she needed and deserved, so she could also excel, which she now, after what, 4 weeks here? I think they started in December, 2nd week of December, I think is when they started full time. They're excelling and they're loving it. They're loving the daily reading, the daily LA, the daily social studies, even the daily math, which in my house, no one but one loves. So I think from my experience as a parent and my daughters and my son's experiences, what we have here in Walpole really works. It should actually be taken as a model. And I know sometimes other schools have other needs. But this is what works for the children. And please ask the children. Don't just ask the budget committee. A budget is great. I'm not allowed to vote because I'm not a US citizen, but I can give my 2 cents worth into it. And my husband votes and my oldest daughter. But ask the children too, because they know what they need. And at the end of the day, taking away teachers, do we really form responsible citizens that will actually, at the end of the day, if they stay here or go somewhere else in the US, in the world, contribute to our society and make Walpole, keep Walpole what it is? There's a reason why we actually moved from Texas to Walpole, because we wanted community. And I think that is important, that our kids at the end of the day will be succeeding with the help of what they get right now and being able to keep what they have, to keep Walpole, but it is a community. Thank you.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
maybe some was simple, but there was a lot of numbers that were
Can we
thrown
have
out,
your
and I
name-
wasn't sure what
your
was.
name?
Oh, sorry, my name's Andrea Vicker-Sivert. I'm from Walpole.
Thank you.
So my first concern is the science positions, the science and math positions. Are those positions that are being asked that will be cut? Is that one of the,
Correct, yeah.
okay, and how, those are requirements to graduate, correct? So how are they getting those?
Because there's other people who are in those positions.
Okay,
It just, unfortunately, what would happen, because everything has a consequence, right?
Yeah.
So you would just reduce the amount of exposure that the kids could get. The challenge is how long, I don't even know if you know, Tom, but how many years since the science one been on, for 1 year or 2? Yeah, I think there was one that was going on 2 years and they couldn't find an applicant.
That's the science position.
so
Right.
how is
It's been
that?
1 year.
How is that? It's a.
And so the other teachers were
Are
filling the
doing it,
role.
right, correct.
And the same is true with the math, but it's just a shorter amount of time.
So the requirements still get met.
Correct,
After
yeah.
graduation,
Yes,
but
yeah.
larger classes, or they don't see the.
Or they
difference as
just
much.
don't, well, it wouldn't even be that, but let's say that there was like a statistics class, maybe that doesn't get offered and only the AP stats does, or maybe there's 2 algebra 2 classes instead of 3. Could be larger, yeah.
Larger
Yeah,
class
so
size.
you go for larger class sizes and you go for
In
less
math.
electives.
Or via.
Not that- so-
Or
Right.
the other option,
All you math teachers are around.
The other option is to increase our VLAX option, our VLAX opportunities. Because that is an opportunity for students as well. And VLAX, for people who don't know what that is virtual learning. So it would be using a FaceTime or, a Zoom kind of a situation, and students working on their own or in a classroom with maybe a paraeducator keeping track of what they're doing, but.
Which is super intense. Those classes are very difficult. The VLAX, they're much more difficult than in a classroom, much more time that goes into it. My second thing that I wanted to say, I used to.
If you can,
Sorry,
you're addressing us.
Okay. Paraeducators were discussed a lot. And the last time that I taught, I think I had 14 students in my class, and half were on IEPs or on 504s. And I had an amazing paraeducator. The paras are irreplaceable. I would always say to my paras, you're my eyes and my ears. I teach, I can't see when there's a kid who doesn't, or I'll say something and somebody might not understand. I don't know how it's coming off. We absolutely have to have them. They're just critical. At kindergarten, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, it does not matter that I taught 6th grade. And these are older students who still don't feel comfortable raising their hands. Last thing that I want to say is I taught in Charlestown. I know that we have a supportive town. I know that my kids will get what they need. But I care about all the kids. We are a district. I don't want the Charlestown kids to not have a teacher that they need if they don't have people advocating for them. And I don't think that they're not, but I don't think that it's fair to say Walpole will be okay because Walpole parents care. I think that as a district, what we're producing should be equal. Like you were saying, best practices, right? Across the board. What works in Walpole, then it works in Charlestown, it works in Alstead. And all of the kids in our district should be getting the same quality education. And it's a pet peeve of mine. I grew up in Walpole. I got a lot. I had great teachers, had a lot of good opportunities. And when I worked in Charlestown, they didn't get those same opportunities. And I had amazing kids and I had amazing parents, but it wasn't fair. But it was the extras that, because the Walpole parents raised the money and did the things, and it was anyhow. So that's all I wanted to say. One clarification on the courses: paraeducators should be in every classroom, and that if we are a district, if we are truly voting for everybody in our district, then every child in every attendance area should be considered.
I just want to address that one more time, that there are no para positions being cut anywhere. So I've heard that a lot, and I agree they are kind of the glue that holds the classroom up, not just together, but literally up. And we can't do enough for that. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware that those are not under duress of anyone. The other thing I'd like to address is that as part of our discussions regarding what we're doing with classes and numbers and things, we do need to discuss the discrepancies between the junior high model that we have in Charlestown and the middle school model that we have in the other two attendance areas. You're aware of it. I want to see that happen sooner than anything else, because it isn't right. Thank you. Good.
Do you kids have anything to say? People moved and now I can see you. No? All right. Okay, I'm gonna close public comment then. Is that okay? All right. All right. Computer shut down. All right, so
Sorry, I just need clarity on that $100,000. So if you're taking that out of the budget, where is it going? And how are we filling said positions that we're praying every day we fill? I just need some clarification so I understand the whole thing.
Sure, thank you. When I tried to explain that the FTEs are staying, it means we're not actually cutting any of the positions at all. They're all, we're still looking to hire for all of them.
Right.
But what it means is we're basically hedging our bet to say half of these positions will get hired and half of them won't get hired until the school year has started. In which case, you're not paying somebody while we don't have somebody. If they get hired in December, you haven't spent the money from August to December. So instead of taking it from the apportionment that goes to the taxpayers, you just put it in the budget for later in the year. That's. We asked the budget committee to answer that, because I'm not coming across very clearly, I don't think.
Probably a good question for the budget hearing.
yeah, can we address that at the budget hearing, or can you answer it?
Well, the only thing I would say is, so most of the paraeducated positions are tied to an IEP. Correct. IEPs, we are required to honor. So what we have been told, or by the state, is that we have to make a great effort to try to get those positions filled. Regardless of that, they have still been having a problem filling all the positions, that you all well know. And so I think what the budget committee was saying was that, and I don't want to speak for them, but this is my interpretation, is that given the challenge we've had, let's say that there's X number that we don't fill over the summer. So by the time we get to November, we fill a few more. December, we fill a few more. For example, I know Michelle had 2 people today that she just hired. If it were the case that we filled them all, we had a great celebration. I'll bring the punch. Then what would happen is we'd have to find the money somewhere else, right? Correct. So you would either take it out of, we have a special ed trust fund, which we can only expend once we've expended all the rest of the money in the budget. Or you can take the money in the budget that you don't spend in a different area and you would use that money towards those positions.
We're just crossing our fingers that there's still money left over. Isn't there
Or you take it from the trust.
as well?
I'm sorry.
Isn't there $100,000 projected to be for from special ed as well?
There was a position at CPS or at Charlestown Independence area. That's not one that we recommended. It was in there, but the thing to remember too, I'm sorry, tell me if I'm off here, is that the budget committee is giving their recommendation. They don't say, nothing against your budget committee, they don't say to the board, they can't tell the board what actual would be. They just give the number. And so there could be decisions made. And that, like I said before, I don't think that's a great budgeting approach. But I also don't think if it went forward that we'd be like, oh my gosh, we had these 12 paras and now we can't hire them. That's not gonna happen. It's driven by the IEP, driven by what's best for the student. The only reason we're not getting called on it, right, from the state level is because we're working our butt off to try to get people. Otherwise, it'd be down our throat if they were like, oh yeah, they're just blowing it on, save money. That's the central office.
Thanks, Brenna. Go ahead, Joe.
Can I say one other point? I think one thing that when I attended the budget committee meeting and they were talking about that, one thing to consider is that in our budget, we've got all of these slots to hire these people for the entire year. When people show up in January, well, that's half the year is gone. That other half of that salary was what we were looking, what I think the budget committee was looking at. Well, that can be saved instead of budgeting for 20 new hires for the entire year. Budget for 10. And if you fill 20 new hires in January, you've already got enough money to pay for them. Because it's halfway through the year. You didn't have to pay them the first half of the year because, well, we couldn't find them. And as our superintendent just said, they just hired 2 people today. That were budgeted for the entire year that are just going to come on board for the last half of it. So there's money saved right there, and a budget committee is just saying, don't put it all up front. You know, your MO is that some of these people come halfway through the year. Let's see if we can save that.
All right. So I'm going to close discussion on the budget. And we can, when we will meet again on Thursday.
That's just closing public comment.
What?
Just closing public comment.
I'm just closing public comment, yeah. Okay. So the next thing on our agenda is the consent agenda. Is there any discussion on the consent?
I think,
Is there anything that wants to get taken off the consent agenda?
yeah, the 2 tuition agreements, I don't think we had time to read them since they just showed up today. But I'd like to, I have a couple of questions on them from what I've been able to read.
Okay.
And the new one that showed up today, Joe, I can put it in yesterday, but that's still your call.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't I'm sorry, I have another job that I had to work on today.
So
But
you want to remove those?
I just wanted to take those out so we could discuss them.
We can discuss them as opposed to having them in the consent agenda.
I also have a question about the program of studies, and I don't know if that important or if it's more of a typo, but I'd like to remove that as well.
Okay. Is that in here?
Uh,
Oh, program study. Okay, so we're looking at taking B, C, and D out of the consent agenda.
Just a reminder that if we want to talk about B and C, it would have to be non-public because they're contracts.
Okay,
So that's.
all right. Do I need a motion to take stuff out of non-public? Okay, all right, out of consent. Okay. So we're gonna move those. So we're moving the B and C, we're moving into non-public, and we can talk about D, the program of studies. Did you, Alyssa, you had a question?
I have
or a
several,
statement?
actually.
Okay,
Do you want a motion for the rest of the consent agenda
oh,
first?
okay, do that first. Oh.
I'll make a motion to accept the remaining items on the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor of accepting that?
Aye.
All right. Now, Alyssa.
Okay, so I thought it was beautifully done. I was really impressed when I was reading through it. But I have 5 bullet points that I just want to address. First, Gail, I'm gonna miss you, but you are still listed as the 504 coordinator for next year. Do we need to change that when we send that out to parents?
We will.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
Maybe you're coming back just to do that part for us.
She's gonna be our 504.
So then my next question was regarding requirements, credit requirements to graduate. There's nowhere in the program of studies that recognizes that the state says 20 credits to graduate, and it's also in our policy, I believe. They only need 20 to graduate. We talk about the 24 credit.
And then 24 and 28.
Okay, but nothing about the state recommendation or minimum of 20.
Well,
I don't know if that's an oversight or.
Doesn't the state have two? Doesn't the state have two statements in terms of that? Or, but it doesn't.
Minimum standard for New Hampshire State is 20 credits.
Ours are above minimum standards. So we can change that. if we want.
Sorry, I was in Vermont.
Thought our policy
forget
was
sometimes.
20. Maybe I misread that.
Special consideration. Special consideration.
Sort of.
Is that what the policy reads? Okay, thank you. Then my next question was, New Hampshire Scholars designation requires chemistry. Are we, because of the lack of a chemistry teacher, are we? At
We're still
some,
teaching chemistry and all the courses that are required are in fact in.
okay, because I saw the new earth science, but I guess I'll just look at it again. Maybe I just missed it.
Right, so Brian is our physics teacher, he's also certified in chemistry.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you. Oh. Thanks, I'm good.
Yeah, pretty straightforward in the state. There should be a minimum 20 credits for regular high school diploma. Boom.
Unless this.
Are you pulling up our policy? Or is it this?
So I was looking, and so I'm looking at the date. It says there should be a minimum of 20 credits for a regular high school diploma unless the local school board has set a requirement for more than 20 credits for a regular high school diploma. In which case, the local credit requirement shall apply.
Okay, and
And the thing
With
is, with block
clarification.
scheduling, it's so easy to get.
20.
20,
Yeah.
However many.
that we raised it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But if going back to the 7th is a consideration.
It's online.
Yeah.
So we need a motion now to,
So can I have a motion for accepting the? Was that all that you had, or? did you-
It is.
Okay, so can I have a motion for accepting the, program of studies?
I'll make a motion to accept the program of studies with the change made.
Okay,
I'll second.
all in favor?
I saw that thing about Gail too, and I didn't. get to-
And then we have
Right over my head.
It's
She's
just
not
such
gonna
a
be here.
start.
I know, she's always been here.
committee reports. The River Valley Technical Center is deep in the midst of creating their budget for next year. I can give you more information once that actually goes through, just like we're, in flux. But it does look like tuition is going to go up again next year, as it does all the time, because that's just what we do. And gas prices, everything else, everything's going up, so we have been doing some really good presentations for the different programs, so I've really been able to see what the different programs are and really get an idea of that. So that's been really a nice thing. We do that before the board meeting. We actually go into the presentation and take a look at it. So it's really, really nice. A good way to really get a sense of what our kids are getting. And it's nice because now I've been away from there for a long enough time that I'm like, oh, they do that? Oh, that's cool. So that's nice.
I actually did see a lot of those when I was reading the program of studies. It's incredible, the
Yeah.
variety kids can take.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing what's available for them. And then we are tomorrow there is a the commissioner, or whatever they call it, what do they call it in the guy in charge of education in Vermont? Is it the commissioner or the in
Secretary of Education.
No, it's not secretary. It's some weird thing. They used to be, but now they call him something else. Anyway, he's somebody from his office and a bunch of bigwigs from the state are coming down to River Valley to discuss the needs of the program and being able to, so I'm going to actually try to get over there tomorrow at some point because we want to talk about having that interstate agreement. And I think that having some direct discussion with folks from there. I do have dogs all day, so I don't know, but I will try really hard. Maybe I can find a spot to walk over there, take them for a hike over there. So that was my report. Yep.
the PD committee is meeting on a full day meeting on the 20th of January to look at the master professional development plan, which they have to bring to the board this year. So any idea when they'll actually bring that to the board?
I believe that we have to submit it to the state in April.
Okay.
So we bring it to the board in likely March.
March. Okay.
Any other committees?
If you want to hear about superintendent search, We have some applications,
Yeah.
resumes rolling in, and we'll be doing interviews. Gosh, 2 weeks. I
In 2
believe.
weeks, yeah, not next week. The week after. We have a meeting next week. I think,
Thanks for the reminder.
yes, because I'm gonna be doing it, I'm gonna be in Michigan, but I'm gonna do it by Zoom. The
Just
dog
say
training
Secretary of
class.
Education, just for giggles.
Well, they do call him the Secretary of Education.
Come on, it's the secretary.
All right. The treasurer's report, I have not signed my piece of it yet, but do I hear a motion for accepting the treasurer's report?
I'll make a motion. Oh, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
Go ahead,
Andy, do
Joe.
you want to second it?
Yep.
Okay, Andy seconding it. All in favor?
Aye.
Information, a superintendent's report is included in your packet. Did you want to add anything to that?
No. If you have questions, that's fine. Yes, sir.
I have a question, but it's not related to that.
Perfect.
But it is related to Walpole accreditation and high school accreditation.
Yep.
What year are we at in those?
We'll just finished theirs last year, so we're just.
So you got 3 more years?
Yeah.
And what about the high
We just
school?
went through accreditation this past November, and we're at the decennial in 2 years.
Okay,
So it was like an update recently.
Yep.
Came in, we have not received the report yet, but we do, you will see it. But we do the decennial, which is the 10-year, will come up in 2 years.
okay, thanks.
All right, then we do have some non-public, so do I hear a motion for going into non-public for a reason of talking about contracts?
I'll make a
Am I
motion.
good or what?
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, Joe's making it, seconded, Andy?
Yep.
Yes.
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 Made the motion. Of course it's yes.
Yes.
A long time between then and here.
It's not putting motions for things that I've then voted against. Just get it so it's on the table, we can talk.
You know,